The holidays are here, so that probably means more drinking, maybe just in moderation, or maybe not. Maybe you're like really dialing back. Why is that? Why are fewer people drinking? Or what might be a sign that you're not dialing back at all and your drinking is just ramping up? These are all questions that we're going to be tackling today on The Healthy Dude. I'm Kurt Williams. We are joined by Brian Helm, a behavioral health expert for Sentara Health. So thanks for joining us today. And so it is, it's the holidays. And why is that associated with, hey, it's okay to drink?
Well, I think there's a lot of people getting together that, you don't see for a long period of time. There's family, and, with family comes expectations sometimes. And so I think...
Comes tension and drama. I got to drink.
Yes, tension and drama. And so I think, alcohol is a social lubricant. It's something that can make it easier to have conversations
I like that.
and be around.
Social lubricant.
Lubricant,
yeah.
Absolutely. So...
And so the question might be, all right, is that, if it's just for the holidays, is that a problem?
Well, if it's just for the holidays, I don't know. That you're going to bring up a lot, in regards to what is a problem and what isn't a problem. I think.
And what would you consider as like normal? Is there a way to kind of define normal holiday drinking?
I don't think there is. I think you really have to look at, a couple of things. The situation. Why are you choosing to drink now? And in this situation, like, why? What is your history with drinking? Like,
you think that there should be some questions that people should be asking around the holidays, or maybe year round, about why are you drinking?
I think in general, yeah. Like, but I think the holidays, we tend to get around people. It's a much more social time. There's a lot more expectations, and so I think the drinking plays a part in that to kind of ease some of those expectations and tensions. Whether it's a work party, holiday party, all those different things where it can sometimes be more difficult. We're in different roles in those situations as opposed to at the office, and so it can be difficult, and it makes it easier with alcohol. In short term.
I would think that there's some people listening right now that maybe are thinking about tuning away because it's like, if I have a few drinks around the holidays, why is that a big deal?
It depends, I guess. It really depends on who the person is and their background and their experience with it. Someone that doesn't drink much at all and they're at the holidays and they have a couple beers and then they don't touch it again, maybe nothing more than a couple drinks of the holidays. But someone that possibly grew up in an alcoholic family, is predisposed genetically to alcohol, and is drinking regularly throughout, we're looking at a very different picture. And so a couple of drinks there may be different for them. So it's really hard, and I think this is why this topic is really important right now, and also really hard to define, what is that type of drinking for a broad brushstroke.
Can short-term drinking possibly have a long-term impact on you?
So a lot of times, like when I look at the research, the focus is on the biological effects of alcohol in the body. Short term, when I look at it, there are some, costs to it, but we have to look at the whole person. We're not just looking at the biology of the person. We have to look at the psychology, the mental health piece. You have to look at the spiritual and the social piece of the human. That is.
What's the spiritual? I'm curious. What's the spiritual component?
Their connection with something greater than themselves, with how they view the world around them, the way nature, and so large amounts of alcohol may numb their ability to be connected in that way. So that is where I would see a detriment. But I don't know, going back to the original question, which is, is there short-term effects? I think in the biology of it, not necessarily.
Okay. But there still might
that
be.
I'm not aware of, but I'm not a doctor. So.
But there might be other consequences that could have a long-term impact.
Depending on the amount of alcohol, how much did you eat before you? Like, if you just have a couple, but you weigh 110 pounds and you didn't have anything to eat before you drank, and I weigh, 200 plus, and I have 2 drinks, it's just going to affect me differently. And so, again, there's variables involved in the alcohol. And which alcohol you choose to drink, 2 shots compared to 2 beers. And, it's just, there's a lot of variables in that.
I was checking on the CDC's website, and it was saying that if you currently don't drink, don't start for any reason. And I was like, wow, that seems kind of harsh. I mean, and maybe there's some wisdom to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, in your field, what are your thoughts about that statement?
Well, to say no alcohol, we just live in really polarized times.
Yeah.
And I am a person that tries to look at moderation and try and balance the costs and benefits of things. And I think to say no alcohol
seems pretty harsh.
It seems harsh
and unrealistic.
In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General talked about the concern of this next is loneliness. So now we have a social lubricant that is biologically harmful, but it makes it easier sometimes to connect. It's a kind of a connection piece, and we've removed that, and we have people that are generally more anxious than we've had in the past, and so we've removed one of the ways to connect. I'm not saying that's the only way, but that is an easier tool sometimes in small amounts. So I don't know that I agree that, if you haven't, don't start. I think, again, I would lean in the direction of moderation. And moderation has to be determined by each individual.
I don't have a problem. I'm drinking in moderation.
And how does that, and that's what I would say is.
And you're right, how is that defined?
How is that defined? You have to look at how it affects you in your world.
I think the CDC was saying for men, it's 2 drinks a day?
I think that was the old one.
That was the old one.
And then it became 1, but no more than 7 per week, and now it's 0. And so, again, moderation to me, when I think about it, is, when I am drinking, how does it affect the people that I love? How does it affect my ability to be with my family? How does it affect me in my job? How does it affect me when I go to sleep? How does it affect me when I wake up? How does it affect me when I go to my doctor and have, blood work? I'm looking at that. How does it affect me, as I had spoken, with my friends? And, when I spend time, when I go to my church and with, when I'm spending time in prayer, how does it affect me? That's all what I would say is if there's an if it inhibits me in some way, or my desires, my goals to be close to family, close to friends, and alcohol has become a barrier, then I think moderation has been removed and it has taken a place of one of the goals or values that I have. So
again, it goes back to, that there should be a series of questions that it's good for people to be asking themselves, which can help them define, maybe this isn't moderation. Maybe I'm seeing an impact in certain areas. Who do I become when I think I'm drinking in moderation, and maybe I'm not?
Yeah, I think I think at one point there was 4 or more is a problem, and there also is an old assessment called the CAGE assessment. It probably is still used.
The CAGE?
CAGE is a CAGE assessment. Is 3, if you hit 1 or more, it could be 80% chance of a drinking problem. So C stands for you try to cut back unsuccessfully. A is you get angry whenever someone talks to you about alcohol. or irritated. G is, you feel guilty when you think back to things you've done while you were drinking. And E is called eye opener. You find yourself waking up in the morning needing to steady yourself with a drink. The old, hair of the dog style. So
Cage. I got to write that acronym down.
Yeah. So it's an older assessment. It's rudimentary, but it's something, if somebody's really trying to figure out, if this is a problem, you can look at it from that. If you hit one of them, you might want to talk to somebody.
Okay.
So.
We're here with Brian Helm. He is a behavioral health expert for Sentara Health. And we've got many more questions to get to you. What are some signs that it might be a problem? But also, why are certain segments of the population drinking less? What is going on here? Many more questions to get to our expert here on The Healthy Dude right after this. Welcome back to The Healthy Dude. We are continuing our conversation with Brian Helm, a behavioral health expert with Sentara Health. So trends are showing that Gen Z, they are drinking less than any previous generation. I was asking a coworker who I think kind of fits in that Gen Z range, and it's like doesn't really, whether it's the holidays, whether it's any kind of special occasion, just doesn't drink hardly at all. Which is, I guess that's a good thing. But why? What are you seeing?
I read recently that I think alcohol consumption or alcohol purchases are at a 90-year low, and so we are seeing a trend with this generation.
What do you think that is?
Whenever we talk about generations, we have to do broad strokes. But I think about, this generation of Gen Z, like we're seeing them, they're like digital natives. So they've never known life without an iPhone or, information at the touch of a button on your phone, in your pajamas, I remember growing up, I had to put on clothes and put on shoes and go to the library to find out information and go through the cards in the Dewey Decimal System. So it's just very different. So with that, I think you've got.
So are they accessing all of the health information that is saying,
so.
Hey, maybe
social media,
no drinking is better?
Social media is, there's social media. There's a lot of different aspects that we weren't getting before. We're getting a lot more information. And I think, depending on where you choose to focus your attention and get your information, you can get a lot of information about the detriments of alcohol. And so.
But on the other hand, they won't hesitate to throw back a bunch of Red Bulls, all right? And so I'm not saying, are they all running out to have a kale sandwich versus a quarter pounder? And I'm not trying to disparage them, but I'm just saying, do you think is it they're being more health conscious? Is it that it's been so, which is good, drummed into their head that, hey, drinking and driving, but now you have all Uber or Lyft. You had, when we were growing up, we really had to be so super conscious about drinking and driving, and I think everyone should. But now with rideshare, so that's why I'm puzzled. Why do you think they're choosing not to drink as much?
Again, broad strokes, but I think about the effects, what has shaped this generation. And the one that just sticks out, when we talk about 2018, 2019, and then 2021, it's all before and after COVID. And I think about the COVID experience and, in a sense, the destabilization for a period of time and sometimes restructuring of so much of what we thought was normal and okay. And I think, it gave us, I think their generation, I'm thinking they might have been in late elementary and middle school. They're looking at a lot of uncertainty, and they're looking at health-related stuff, and I think they're looking at things very differently, and I think they're not accepting what was the status quo anymore. And so,
speaking of the status quo, there used to be a time where I remember going to college parties. And man, if you didn't have a drink in your hand, the peer pressure, what's your problem, man? It's there was a peer pressure to throw them back, and
Yeah.
I guess that's gone now.
Well, I think there has been, with, post-COVID, there has been a significant focus on mental health and, really looking at and trying to work on that and giving time to address that. And so I think with that, mental health and alcohol aren't always good friends. And so I think that could play a part too. And, when you look at work-life balance, the buzzwords are just trying to find balance in your life. Like, alcohol is not always the best one to balance. It tends to take and absorb over time rather than balance. And so I think that could be part too.
It requires a tremendous amount of discipline, and some people have that. I mean, I'm not talking with the people who have a serious problem with it. I mean, I just think I know with me, I can, it's just you've got to set up a cutoff. All right. I'm gonna have one beer and that's it, or two. And so I think it does require a certain amount of discipline. But you think shifting, because if whether you're a fan of Mad Men, when you think of there's, just throwing the booze back. I mean, booze was at work. In our industry, I think that there was, decades ago, there was a time where it wasn't unusual for someone to have a stash
in their desk drawer. Yeah.
What has caused that? It's a good thing, but what has caused that shift?
I think this would be, one thing is we really have to look at how society views, accepts, or disdains the drug. You look at the shift with cannabis over time, over the last 20 years, and how it's shifted and how, we treat those that use. And I think, those madmen, we refer to that had the bottle in the office, it was assumed that people should be able to handle their alcohol, and if they couldn't handle the alcohol, it wasn't an addiction; it was a choice. And so, it was more of a loyal, legal problem, or inability to handle their alcohol. And so, I think there weren't as many resources to get them help, and so they were kind of isolated. As opposed to now, there's a lot of options for those that have addictions or are realizing that they have a problem. And so how we treat not just alcohol, but those that either struggle or choose to partake in it is really, really important.
A moment ago, you mentioned, cannabis use. I mean, is there anything that suggests that people are shifting from drinking to increased cannabis use, and that's that's a factor?
I think it is. I think it is a factor. I have not tracked as well and looked at, as cannabis, for instance, is legalized in a new state. Another state chooses. I mean, we're talking in Virginia about the possibility of expanding a legal retail market. Yeah. But I would be curious. But here we have that on the cusp, possibly, I don't know. But retail alcohol sales are already going down. So, it's hard to say, but I do think it plays a part in it, especially maybe with, this Generation Z, as we refer to them as. That was not something that was as accepted from my generation.
Yeah.
I'm Generation X, alcohol flowed fine, and cannabis was just not as there. It was around, but it was kind of off to the side in a party somewhere, as opposed to out front.
We have much more to ask you, because it's I want to know, gender wise, which is more of a challenge, which is where are we seeing greater strides in the whole moderation discussion? But men versus women, I mean, who probably needs to be a little more aware, or just what you're seeing. So we're gonna put that to you right after this quick break. And welcome back to The Healthy Dude. I'm Kurt Williams. We're joined by Brian Helm, a behavioral health expert with Sentara. Hal, men or women? I mean, is there? You hear anecdotally that it's men who used to get plowed, but is it? What are you seeing as far as who might have a greater problem, who hides it better?
I think what I have read is that it definitely affects genders differently. I think it, unfortunately, for the women, it affects their metabolism differently, it's absorbed differently, and it affects them more detrimentally.
Wow.
In that I had read the way they metabolize it, meaning they have less muscle and water than men, so it is metabolized differently. And so
Which would explain why, I guess, even under the old standards, that what was considered drinking in moderation, men could always, at the time, have one more drink than women could have.
Yeah.
But under those old standards.
Yeah, and I think the way it's metabolized, and there's also when you're looking in social situations, there is, I feel like, more risk at parties for women drinking than for men. Though those times are changing, but when I was growing up, there was more risk for women becoming inebriated in social settings, being isolated, and the concerns of that. So. I would say for men, I'm not going to let them off the hook in any way. I think men are more risk takers, and you add alcohol, which shuts off the decision-making part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, and so they're going to do some things that they wouldn't normally do with people they probably shouldn't be. And so there is that piece of men doing things they probably wouldn't normally do, depending on how much they've drank, and so the risk taking is a problem. And we see that, on the roads, and the drinking and driving, which you had mentioned. Yeah.
And I would wonder, and I don't want to generalize, but I mean, do women have a better job of handling peer pressure? I know we talked a moment ago saying that it seems like peer pressure has kind of dropped somewhat to chug, chug, chug. But I mean, do you see that maybe women are more secure than men are about responding to, and standing up to peer pressure versus, I got to be cool, so I got to throw this back even though I've already had 10? I mean, or is there any data to back that up?
I might have swung one way if I didn't have two teenage daughters right now. I see peer pressure on a level that I never had comprehended before for women. So I would say I think it's equal, and I would even maybe say harder for women at some level because the peer pressure to be with a group. I do see, my experience has been women tend to travel together more often. Men seem to be more comfortable being alone, and so I think to stay together, there would be more peer pressure at some level for the women, but I think it's pretty equal on that.
There was a time, I know, I don't know, but not long ago it seemed like you were hearing these studies that a couple of glasses of red wine, it's good for your heart.
Mediterranean. Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, I was all about that data, and and now they're not saying that anymore.
Yeah, and again, they're saying that based on the biology of it. But if you look at the social and the communal aspect of sitting down and having a meal with someone and having a glass of red wine, like they talked about in the Mediterranean diet, the cost and benefit, yes, doing that every single day, 2 glasses of wine probably is not, but, getting together for a meal, or a holiday meal, and having a glass of wine, I see the benefit of, if that is a communal or that's a rich family ritual, I see the real benefit to being apart and taking a part and being with your family in that way. That's good to hear that balance, that there's not a hard and fast rule like, swear it off, never again. But that there could be some benefits to that, you're not drinking alone. Yeah. It's there's the communal aspects and all the benefits that come from that. And so a glass or two. Yeah, I know, the research that's coming out is saying none, but again, I just go back to the different dimensions of us as humans. It's not just biology. There's the social aspect, the psychological or mental health, and then the spiritual aspect. There was a study I learned about where they studied cultures with alcohol. Is it affected by cultures? Do you see alcoholism higher in different cultures? And they found the lowest actual rates of alcoholism were in the Jewish and Chinese culture. And when they broke it down, they found the reason is they used alcohol as part of a ritual that didn't involve inebriation, but it was just part of a ritual. And so they brought alcohol into their culture in a way that was cultural, but not to the extremes. And so again, the moderation piece. So I don't know.
What might, real quick, because I know we need to wrap it up, but what might be a sign that I do have a problem?
So that would be where you get into, you can look at the criteria, of what would be diagnosed from a mental health provider. If you're drinking, taking more or drinking longer than you had planned, if you're continuing to use, even though there have been detriment to like your social or work-related, if you're missing work because of the effects of alcohol, if you're seeing withdrawal effects, like the shakes with alcohol. And so I think the signs, those are some of the signs, but I think ultimately, usually people around you tend to know, so sometimes they'll talk to you, and that's where that anger, the A part of the cage.
So if you start to bristle at somebody saying something about your drinking, that could be an indication.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that's one of the cage. I think.
And I would imagine, you'd been saying that it's kind of good to ask questions about why am I drinking, and
yeah.
It I guess might help keep you from getting into a routine. I've gotten off from it's not a special occasion. It's just I've gotten home from work. I'm going to pour myself. It's Tuesday. I'm gonna pour myself a drink, and we can. I know I have a routine of having 2 cups of coffee every morning, and I guess we can get in a routine
absolutely
of having a drink and think that, hey, it's just one drink, but I'm having 2 drinks Sunday through Saturday.
And again, looking at how that affects, you and your whole life and the people that mean the most to you and, your work and livelihood. So, yeah. I think if there's a concern, every drug comes with a lie. I believe the lie with alcohol is I can handle it. And so I think, looking around you and listening to what other people are saying about your drinking is one of the keys,
All right, I got to squeeze in one more question.
Yeah.
If you have a loved one who you see, you are concerned, I mean, how do you open the door to that conversation?
There's a saying, connect before you redirect. So I would say like trying to connect and letting them know how much you care. And then like letting them know the concerns you're seeing, trying to connect with them. And then just making them aware, like, this is what I'm seeing. Do you see that? Is it just here? Is this just me? Or are you seeing this other places? And then letting them know. I mean, there's great resources that cost no money. There's support groups that you can call, if that is a need. There's a lot of stuff out there that was not out there when we had the Mad Men with the drinking. That's out there now. It's great stuff. So.
All right. Brian, I've really enjoyed this. Brian Helm, he's a behavioral health expert with Sentara Health. Thank you for joining us today. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Glad. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us on The Healthy Dude.